I want to thank you for joining us. This has been, Mukesh, I think the best we've ever done in terms of the U.S.-India Strategic Partnership Annual Summit. We talked about growth. We've also talked about the challenges we face. And I think it's how countries and leaders come through this that really determine their future. Each of the sessions have gotten back to the basics. So I think what was a dream just 5 years ago of the Prime Minister Modi and of the USISPF was the ability to get a strategic partnership that goes way beyond trade, about innovation, inclusion, the benefit of every citizen in every country. This segment of the summit is about recognizing two leaders, one leader from India and one leader from the US, who has done an amazing job, not just in their own business and giving back, but an amazing job in getting the partnership between the two countries working well. I couldn't be more pleased with the two leaders that have been selected for this year. I'm honored to call both of them a very, very good friend, and their accomplishments, I think, in many ways speak for themselves. But let me just focus on their ability to bring our countries together. The first, a leader from India, Anand Mahindra. He's chairman of the $19 billion Mahindra Group. It goes from agriculture to aerospace. He is passionate about education and inclusion. He was the recipient this year of the Padmashree Award, which we know how much that means to India and to everyone else in terms of the very uniqueness of the give back to his country that he's been able to do. He has 6 million followers on Twitter, and he's just a really good person. So he's the award recipient from India. Shantanu, Narayen. He's a very, very good friend here in the U.S. He's somebody I trust completely. He's chairman and CEO of Adobe. They have 12 million in sales, 12 billion in sales per year, and a market capitalization of $250 billion. Shantanu, you've got to tell me how we do that, because we've got a number of startups that are trying very hard to be recognized in the market. You are one of the largest and most diversified software companies in the world. Your financial success is legendary, but even more, your leadership in terms of giving back, a focus on culture within your company is one of the best places to work, and most American companies in the world, according to Fortune and to all of us. Anand, you are the winner of the Padmashree Award, which again states to the contribution that you've done again and again giving back to India. Great friend and a great person. I'd like to now turn it over to Purna Segrity. Purna is one of the co-chairmen of the USISPF. He's also chairman of the Global Corporate and Investment Banking at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, to formally introduce each of these leaders and to talk more about their accomplishments. Purna, let me turn it over to you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a real pleasure to be with all of you today. As you know, as John just mentioned, every year the USISPF honors two leaders, one from India and one from the United States, with the Leadership Award, to recognize them for their exemplary vision and service towards promoting US-India bilateral ties. It is with great pride that today we are recognizing two such leaders. Two leaders who are truly global citizens, two leaders who need no introduction, but I just cannot resist the opportunity to share with you some of the differences they have made over the last many decades. John touched on some of that. Anand Mahindra is chairman of Mahindra Group, one of India's top industrial houses. The Mahindra Group is today over $19 billion in sales, operating in over 100 countries, and upper teen industry groups that represent the global economy. When Anand took over the company had $177 million in sales. His vision, his tenacity, and his leadership helped create this phenomenal company. $177 million to $19 billion in sales, and around $441 million in market capitalization to almost $10.5 billion in market capitalization. Wow, that is an amazing growth trajectory. That, ladies and gentlemen, defines the greatness of the leader. And he has been recognized by many an organization for his accomplishments already. Fortune magazine recognized him as among the world's 50 greatest leaders and among top 25 powerful business people in Asia. Ranked among the best and the top few of the world's of CEOs, Forbes Entrepreneur of the Year Award, and many, many more. True to the global reach, he is chairman of the India Advisory Council at the Lincoln Center in New York and a trustee of the National History Museum of London. What impresses me more is the difference Anand makes in the communities around us. The Mahindra Group has set a global standard for being a socially and environmentally responsible company. His pet project is the Nani Kali project that he has spearheaded. Through this program, he has provided education for 250,000 underprivileged girls across India and has provided after-school education support. He truly has made a difference and in scale. He has created the Mahindra Humanities Center at Harvard University to support liberal arts education, a passion of his. A man of all seasons, a multi-talented gentleman, a businessman who has made a good company into a great company, a gentleman who has the vision of a filmmaker, having studied film, a leader with the humility of a monk, but the toughness of a kabaddi center given his kabaddi teams, a great Indian that was awarded the Padma Bhushan earlier this year. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed an honor to present to you the 2020 USISPF Leadership Award winner, Anand Mahindra.
Thank you. Thank you, John and Mukesh and the USISPF board. I actually have the trophy here and I'm holding it up. Now, I wish I could pretend that you just handed it over to me and we somehow teleported it here. But maybe in good time, maybe Shantanu and will be able to do that with his cohort in the US and their technology. I want to say I'm very grateful for the recognition. But let me hasten to add that whenever I receive an award, I'm always reminded of a very folksy American adage that when you see a turtle on top of a fence, you sure as hell know he didn't get there by himself. So if the Mahindra Group is seen as contributing to US-India business ties, it's of course to my colleagues who have labored long and hard in a very difficult and unfamiliar market to make the Mahindra brand known. And it's really thanks to their spirit of enterprise that today we have 7 businesses in the US which have invested more than $1 billion and continue to expand in both urban and rural areas. Our engagement, in fact, has deepened over a quarter of a century. And I just want to say we are here for the long haul. So really to them, my colleagues, goes the honor. And it is on their behalf, in reality, that I accept this award. The Mahindra Group is, of course, no stranger to doing business in the US. And in a way, I think you could say that the US was really like a midwife to our birth, to the birth of our group. Because one of our founders was a close friend of a gentleman called Barney Roos, who happened to be the inventor of the Willys Jeep. And they met in Washington, somewhere towards the end of World War II, when India was on the cusp of becoming independent. So our founders saw the Jeep as the answer to connecting India's far-flung villages where the majority of Indians live, and where roads were really non-existent at that time. And Eureka, the Mahindra Group's automotive business, was born. Since that time, we've teamed up in India with American Motors, with Chrysler, with the International Harvester Company of Chicago, with Otis Elevators, and with Ford. Frankly, just to name a few of our collaborators. And for the last 25 years, we've also been expanding our horizons in the US. So in a way, I guess you could say we are simply perpetuating our DNA and chasing our roots. On a personal note too, I have to confess that the US has played a seminal role in my development. I went to college in America, and although this is a business forum we are participating in today, I want to emphasize that one of the most valuable resources the US has offered the world and continues to offer the world is the liberal arts education. I will say with great honesty that it is my liberal education that taught me not to accept anything unquestioningly, to think critically and analytically, and to have the courage of my convictions. Now, both India and the US are unique places in which to do business. The US is a great playing field. It's dynamic, it's innovative, it's entrepreneurial. But India also brings a lot to the table. And I want to mention only one element today, and that is our deeply ingrained Indian values, like the Gandhian concept of the trusteeship of wealth, which has evolved in the corporate context really into the idea of a purpose-driven business. I know that the US ISPF also believes in purpose-driven capitalism. And frankly, that's the main reason I'm a proud participant. So thank you again for honoring me today. There's a wonderful line from a great novel that says that in the end, it's impossible not to become what others believe you are. So I'm going to do my best to live up to the expectations that this honor generates. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anand. Shantanu Narayen is the chairman, president, and CEO of Adobe, one of the largest and most diversified software companies in the world. Adobe's mission is to change the world through digital experiences, serving a large customer base from students to business communicators to the world's largest enterprises. As CEO, Shantanu has transformed the company into an industry innovator by pioneering a global cloud-based subscription model for this creative suite, establishing the global standard for digital documents and creating and leading the explosive digital experience category. Today, he's driving the company's strategy to unleash creativity for all, accelerate document productivity, and power digital business. Under Shantanu's leadership, Adobe has achieved record revenues and industry recognition for its inclusive, innovative, and exceptional workplace, including being continuously named a great place to work and a most admired company. A tough position to be in the very attractive Silicon Valley. Since Shantanu became CEO in 2007, Adobe has increased in size from 3 billion revenues to what it is today. Phenomenal. And the market capitalization increased from 18.75 billion to $247 billion. A remarkable achievement of creating value. Well done, Shantanu. Shantanu has been recognized as one of the world's leading executives, including Barron's World's Best CEOs and Fortune's Business Person of the Year award, and named a top CEO of Glassdoor and the Economic Times Global Indian of the Year award. Shantanu was awarded the prestigious Padmashree by the Government of India a few years ago. What I love about this multi-talented gentleman is that along with the business and software genius in him, he represented India in sailing at an Asian regatta. Now that is not something you see very often. Anytime your mission is to change the world, the digital world in this case, that requires vision, that requires intensity, and that requires focus, and that requires tenacity. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what Shantanu is all about. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed an honor to present to you the 2020 US ISPF Leadership Award winner, Shantanu Narayen.
Thank you. Thank you, Purna, for those really kind words. And I'd also like to thank John, Mukesh, Gaurav, the board, and the entire US ISPF team for this leadership award. And congratulations, Anand. It is such an honor to be receiving this alongside you. While sailing is not quite kabaddi, I was also fortunate to represent India as a youngster. I applaud the US ISPF mission to accelerate the bilateral strategic partnership between the US and India. This partnership is founded on a shared vision to accelerate economic growth and prosperity by uniting the strengths, innovations, and talents of two global leaders. It's a matter of pride that in just 3 years, the US ISPF has become the leading platform to foster a robust and dynamic relationship
between the two countries across every dimension, and I'm proud and humbled to be the vice chairman of such an esteemed organization. And in particular, the strong ties between the two countries, reflected in about 4 million strong Indian American diaspora, I think are a tremendous source of strength to continue to accelerate this partnership. Like Anand, I am standing on the shoulders of giants, and I accept this award on behalf of the over 20,000 Adobe employees around the world. It is truly a lovely award, and I look forward to celebrating in person as well, Anand, Purna, and with the rest of you someday. But at Adobe, our mission is to change the world through digital experiences. And we believe that that has never been more relevant as digital increasingly becomes intrinsic to how we work, how we're educated, and how we're entertained. It's a matter of pride that our customers range from individual artists who have this unique story to tell to large multinational institutions focused on delivering exceptional digital experiences that build long-term loyalty and growth. And Adobe's presence in India plays a pivotal role in advancing this mission, in continuing to innovate, and in serving our customers. In the 23 years since we started our operation in India, even though we're a Silicon Valley company, our offices in both Noida and Bangalore have grown to over 6,000 employees, or roughly 30% of our global workforce, making India the largest Adobe establishment outside the United States. Our labs represent 1/3 of all research and development, contributing significantly to the innovation that fuels us at our core as a product company. But we're equally pleased to contribute the best of Adobe, our technology, our people, to assist the government of India, in addition to the government of the United States, on several digital transformation initiatives. I am who I am as a result of the educational opportunities I got in India. And it used to be all about reading, writing, and arithmetic, but today it's all about digital literacy. And we're thrilled that we have made Adobe Spark, our consumer application that enables the quick and easy creation of social graphics and videos, free to educational institutions, in support of the Skill India initiative. When the team was extremely proud of what they had accomplished by allowing millions to have access to this technology, I reminded them that there are billions of people still in India who don't have access to it. Last year, we partnered with the Education Ministry to host a creativity challenge in honor of Mahatma Gandhi's 150th birthday, asking students to commemorate Gandhi's life through creativity. And I was inspired to be able to participate in hearing what the students had done to celebrate Mahatma Gandhi's legacy on this planet. I'm also particularly proud more recently of the corporate social responsibility that our India team drove to support the government by contributing millions to source ventilators and preventive kits for hospitals and providing over 3 million meals to impacted families. But while Adobe's global mission represents the what, the how for me is uniquely shaped by my upbringing and the Indian in me. A focus on the bigger prize, the long-term initiatives, and the learnings that I've gleaned from business titans like Anand that I have admired, our culture and our scriptures. And in addition to thanking our Adobe employees who have made these accomplishments possible, I would certainly like to add my thanks to my family, my wife, my kids, and my parents, to whom I owe this all. Adobe welcomes the opportunity to continue to build on our momentum together, including contributing to initiatives such as New India by 2022. Purna and the entire USISPF team, thank you again for this incredible honor. It is particularly special to me as it's a recognition of both my Matrabhumi as well as my Karma Bhumi. Thank you again very much.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you, John, Purna, and Mukesh. Now please welcome Nick Deegan, CEO Americas and Senior U.S. Partner at the Brunswick Group, for a conversation with our leadership awardees.
Great. I think we're ready. I think we're on. Great. Shantanu, Anand, you can hear me okay? Yes, great. Okay. Well, thank you both, and thank you, Purna and Mukesh. Congratulations, Shantanu and Anand. I can't think of two more deserving recipients of this award. It's, to me, having known both of you for some time, I think in addition to all your successes, there are three attributes which always stand out to me. One is how generous you've always been with your time with other young people, myself included. Your humility, and to me, often the most important attribute, sense of humor, and not taking oneself too seriously. And as somebody who spent a career talking to CEOs and interviewing them and now advising them, I think that's in some ways the most important quality. So thank you both for joining me, and look forward to a good conversation. I think we're also the appetizer before the Prime Minister, so we have a lot to cover. I guess, Anand, I'll start with you, if you don't mind. And I think we're all living in this pandemic world. I would love to get a sense from you and then from Shantanu about how your organizations have adapted to this new world, and I suppose what you wish you knew then that you know now, having lived through this for the last 5 months.
Yeah, Nick, one of the things that I've been very gratified about is the culture of our group, which really helped us face the challenge that we are facing right now. And it's a particular element of our DNA, which I did not create. It existed when I joined the company. And that was, frankly, the ability to cope magnificently with crises of any kind. Of course, I used to joke, talking about a sense of humor, that I wish it wasn't always a crisis that people associate with our DNA and our being able to cope. But the fact is, it's true. If you talk to anybody at Mahindra, they will use that old cliche of when the going gets tough, Mahindra gets going. And that came to our aid magnificently when this happened. People just rise to the occasion, as you call it. So really, courage and creativity during a crisis was already embedded deep in our culture. And it came to life for me in a very vivid way. I did not really urge people to do very much. I got a call one day from our team that despite the lockdown had gotten special passes to go into the factory, retool the lines, and developed a respirator, an ambu bag respirator, in 5 days. And there they were on a VC with me, showing me what they had created in just 5 days. A gang of people who had gone out. They did the same with a very sophisticated ICU ventilator, which they developed in a month, dramatically lowered the cost. Happily, we don't need that ventilator because, as all of you will know today, the ventilator has become less critical in the treatment of COVID. But the fact was that what we proved to ourselves was our agility, our nimbleness. And I know for sure, not only is that core cultural DNA of ours going to be reinforced by this experience that we've had now, but that element of nimbleness and agility and creativity is going to transfer into how we develop our new products. So I'm very proud of that. But as I said, I'm very grateful for what I inherited. And your question about what I wish I had known, again, this might sound a little euphoric, but I wish I had known that the demand would recover as quickly as it appears to be doing. Because prior to March, we had really focused on being very efficient in our inventory. And so we, out of the industries that we're in terms of tractors and automobiles, we had arguably the lowest inventory throughout the pipeline, and we were patting ourselves on the back for that. Unfortunately, not having enough inventory is coming to be a little bit of an impediment. We just declared our tractor volumes, for example, for August. We were up 69% year on year, 69% year on year. And we would have been much higher in terms of growth if we had enough tractors. So we are hand to mouth in producing tractors. So I'll stop there, but really this is a time that I wish I had known that we would have had demand bouncing back. We would have prepared a little more inventory and had a little more stock.
Great. Shantanu, the same question for you.
Well, much like Anand said, I think we've been so amazed by the resiliency of our employee base. All companies, Nick, as you know, do business continuity planning, but I don't think business continuity planning ever involved overnight having every single employee work from home. And first and foremost, I think just the resiliency of the Adobe employee base was truly inspiring. I think a little bit more structurally, we did a couple of things. The first is employee well-being, to reiterate the obvious, which is first and foremost, we wanted our employees to be safe and healthy. And that immediately got put into place, much like Anand said. The second thing then we did was to really, and it doesn't impact us, but for a lot of companies, financial stability was the second issue. And the third thing that I think we did, which was really good, was how can we serve our customers better? Like the Mahindra Group, I mean, we're a company that's focused on the long term. And so I'll give you two examples of the kinds of things that we said to ourselves, which is people have long memories. And so on the Creative Cloud, for example, we provision millions and millions of people who hitherto had access to our software in the enterprise to have provisions and access to that software at home. Because the world of creativity doesn't stop. I mean, if anything, one of the silver linings of all of this has been the entertainment that people have tried to get to maintain some sense of stability and saneness. And so we provision that. Similarly with governments all around the world, because nobody was able to engage in a physical way, we had to engage with them digitally. As you know, we have electronic signature technology. And so making sure that that electronic signature technology through PDF was available so that people could get loans and people could, continue their business. So I think this notion of helping our customers after we took off employee well-being, I think that was something, again, that was truly inspiring. And then the third thing that we did was really to say, listen, let's acknowledge that we can't do everything that we want. And so why don't we ruthlessly prioritize what is really important and has absolutely the biggest bang over time, and give people the latitude to maybe not do things, which is something that, most enterprises don't think of, I believe. And so allowing people to not do things that were lower priority, but focusing on the really critical initiatives, I think was the third thing in which we tried to deal with this. And to your question, I mean, one of my sayings, and I don't like it, but a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And the fact that we use this crisis to reiterate the importance of our employees, to engage with customers in a meaningful way, and to double down on the initiative things, I wish that was something that we could do just as effectively in normal times. But, the way the company has come together has been truly unbelievable.
I'm curious. I mean, look, I think there's been a obvious, I know we see it at Brunswick in my day job, advising companies. It's amazing to see the flight to quality we have seen. And I think the businesses you both have built are testament to them, because people want to go to companies that they know can deliver for their clients in this time. Anand, I'm kind of curious, we've all talked about the future of work so much before COVID. Now we're living it. Probably seeing the kind of transformation we never thought we'd see in years happen in months. What parts of that worry you, and how do you keep I was speaking with our friend Ajay Banga the other night, but how do we keep that culture going at a time when people are remote for long stretches of time and may want to be remote for much longer? I think that's a particular challenge when we're used to, and especially in the context of U.S.-India relations as well. That human touch must count for something too.
Yeah, I have to be, well, let's be clear first of all. Have there been some benefits from working from home, and have we seen some revelations? Yes, we have in many of our companies, and as you know, we are a broad spectrum of companies. Half our workforce of 220,000 people is an IT company, Tech Mahindra. And the CEO there has clearly said that he sees enormous opportunities for raising productivity. He finds productivity has gone up with people working from home. And obviously, there's going to be huge saving in office costs, which are a substantial cost, as Shantanu knows well, for IT companies. There'll be a benefit to the environment because, as we all know, again, IT companies are major users of air conditioning and fuel and energy. So that's all well and good. But I have to say, honestly, I'm not one of the uninhibited votaries of working from home, especially when you talk about a developing country. It's a double-edged sword. We have to recognize that for a lot of people who are not at the top of the pyramid, but really from the bottom to the middle, in a country like India, going to work has special self-esteem attached to it. There is also, let's talk about social distancing. If you look at people's congested living quarters in India, it's often easier to social distance at work rather than at home. And that also is jeopardized when you tell people to work from home. There was an article that's just come out by, I can't remember, I think it was FT or somewhere else, where they've talked about how in India, only 19% of the workforce may be able to utilize work from home in a very productive manner because of the connectivities. That I think is temporary. But I am greatly concerned eventually, even for an IT company which might benefit from productivity and cost savings, how do you build community? And Poorna very graciously referred to my being on the Lincoln Center Global Advisory Board, and Henry Timms, who's the director there, wonderfully eloquent man. The other day we were talking about the Lincoln Center and how they're coping. And he used a wonderfully eloquent phrase of saying, it's not about content only, it's about community. And it's not only about performance, it's also about the act of gathering. And I thought that was a wonderfully poetic way to put it. And I think it applies to companies, not just to the Lincoln Center or any arts organization. There is a benefit in community. There is a benefit in gathering. And I talked about the culture that I inherited at Mahindra. I'm not sure that culture would have been created only from working from home. You build bonds, you have corridor conversations, you build friendships, people do favors for you because they get to know you well. It's a very, very intricate way in which culture is woven together. And so I have to say, I'm not going to jump in right away and say, let's all work from home, that's a happy future. Community and culture, you're going to have a workplace, in my opinion.
No, I think that's right. Shantanu, your company is in some ways the forefront of making it easier for people to work from home. I don't even know what I would do without Adobe right now. And I've been involved in both an IPO and an M&A transaction right now. The sheer number of documents and signatures that have been exchanged now, which people used to think they had to do in person, has been amazing. What's your reaction to what Anand said?
Much has been written about the benefits of working from home. The commute times are reduced, the impact on the global environment in terms of, carbon footprint, etc. And as I said earlier, I think it's really been amazing to see how resilient and adaptive people have been. I'm with Anand on this one. I think there are a couple of things that are a note of caution that we all need to be concerned about. The first is the water cooler conversation that, again, Anand referred to, which is when you're doing existing projects, it feels like the future of work. Existing projects are proceeding fabulously. But when you want that new initiative, you're trying to, get a team really rallied around a common flag that you want to plant, and you have a sense of urgency around it. There's nothing that I think will take the place of those conversations that happen in person. And so I believe that that's one of the things that we will all have to figure out, which is, how do you brainstorm together collectively? How do you create that sense of purpose for new things? Like Anand, we're hiring a lot of people. And, I think it's very obvious to people when they come into a physical location what Adobe stands for. And I always say that people do their best work when they resonate with the mission and the values. And how one creates this culture, community, as was referred to, in this completely virtual world is unknown. And so I think that's an area that we have to work on. But I would say the third area really has to do with, as the college season starts and as school season starts, the emotional fabric and the support structure in families to deal with everybody being at home, I worry that we're in for a long fall as it relates to, how people get that emotional support and the fabric of society. We will have some challenges associated with it. Now, Anand and I were talking before we got on. We're both eternal optimists, and so we'll figure this out. But I think unless we are conscious of some of these things about the future of work and home, because that's blurring increasingly. You never know when you're at home, with the family versus you're at work. I think we have to create a new set of norms that enable people to deal with this for a longer duration.
I'm curious, as we've heard so much in the last few days, and I think, Mukesh, congratulations for just putting together a stellar program, and John, what you've done. We've heard from ministers, ambassadors, and I'm kind of curious, as we think about this being in a world we may live in for quite some time, how do you think the U.S. and Indian governments can work together to keep this great culture of innovation alive? And look, Anand, you spoke eloquently about, a liberal arts education that you received over here. I did the same. I remember coming here as a young kid at the age of 18 for college. And I'm wondering, in this new world we live in, what do you see as some of those priorities to make sure that the U.S. and Indian governments are both fostering that exchange of ideas and innovation and cultures, which has served both our countries so well?
Again, this is one area one has to tread very carefully, because when you bring up governments and you say, what can governments do to foster progress, innovation? But if you refer to the Indian IT industry, they'll of course tell you that the folklore here was that the IT industry in fact grew and thrived because it was not ever on the government's radar at that time. That's almost become a cliche. So you'll get a lot of pushback when you start saying, can the government help? I think there is a value clearly in a government, which was the government at the time, or the regime at the time. It might have been better to be off their radar, but I'm not somebody who's one of those unbridled free marketers who says the government doesn't matter. It always does matter. And especially when you look at the US and what its sources of innovation have been, they're never trumpeted around, but frankly, even the internet that we are on today was a function of the US armed forces. If you look at the military-industrial complex, that awful hyphenated phrase, but that has been the source of a great amount of innovation, and I think we've lacked that in India. So I would hope, I am somebody who thinks that the US and Indian governments come together. There is something that they could do which would be very powerful. You already have the USISTEF fund, which I don't know how much is done, to be honest. But if you look at India, we are almost on the cusp of some major startup innovations. People are beginning to find their stride. They're beginning to get their confidence. What we lack is really venture capital. We lack the capital that has fueled Silicon Valley for a long time. Now, I don't know what the government can do about that, but the governments of India and the US think we need to kickstart it. And then, of course, let a tsunami of private venture capitalists from US and around the world come in. Perhaps maybe there could be some kind of fund, which in fact is a fund that is directed towards startups in India and provides seed capital. Capital to me, startup capital is the biggest short resource in India right now. So I would probably say, Nick, that we have to go in a careful manner. But if the two governments can find some way to collaborate and channel startup finance into India, the startup environment is just ready to go like gangbusters.
Just to stay with that subject for a second, tell us what you see on two factors. One is, what are the unique competitive advantages the Indian tech sector has now? And, what's your, you've got your fingers in so many different businesses. I'm curious, I think before the pandemic, you had thought that India would be the fastest growing economy by 2021. Obviously, the pandemic has shifted everyone's outlook on all kinds of things. What needs to happen for India to, hit that potential, which we all agree it has?
Yeah, let's start with the second one. I guess it's a terrible time to remind me of what I said when the GDP figures came in at minus 23%.
That's right.
So
All
what happened
predictions are now off the table for now.
No, so I'll tell you one thing, funny way, talking about humor. The very fact is, I can tell you one thing. There's a damn good chance that next year, same quarter, we may in fact be the fastest growing because the base effect is going to kick in.
Yeah,
if you're going to start with the minus 23, I can pretty much guarantee you we'll be. So who knows? Maybe that disaster has really helped my crystal ball look very, very solid. But I know we are running out of time, so I'll be very quick in the other one. I really think we have almost like a Y2K opportunity. You remember the Y2K, which in 1999 fueled and propelled the Indian IT industry and the outsourcing of the world to India. I have this working from home, going back to that. The fact is that all the inertia that US and international companies had to switch from their suppliers, they wanted to have their tier one suppliers right there. They didn't want to outsource. Well, outsourcing is all they've been doing for the last 6-7 months. I think that barrier has gone. People are going to be all too willing to experiment and to outsource even more. So this is a huge disruption which will help India. And ironically, the tensions with China, though I don't want to stray too much into that area, what has happened is that it has allowed Indian startups to get self-confidence, to feel they have the space to expand. And so I think we're on the cusp of huge opportunity for India.
So I know we're short on time, so I think one last question for both of you. Shantanu, I'll start with you. I mean, look, you're both being honored for long and illustrious careers, which always is dangerous because then you start to think that you're near the end of the career than the beginning of the middle. So, but I think, especially for this audience, I think they would love to get a sense from both of you, what some of the pivotal moments or turning points were in your career that set up the trajectory. And I know you've been very generous by talking about your teammates and employees, but I'm curious to see if there were any particular moments which really stood out for you. And Shantanu, maybe I can start with you and then on and end with you.
Well, Nick, I'd like to say I took over as CEO in 2007, and in 2008 we had record revenues, and I'm like, how hard can this be? Even I can do this job. And then the recession hit in 2009, and when the recession hit in 2009, our revenue, had a precipitous drop because our recurring revenue was not low. And so, what's always stuck with me is the fact that when you have an external situation that forces you to really re-examine, some of the fundamental ways in which you're running, how can you create that culture of constantly re-examining things? And I believe that's the impetus for change and innovation and disruption. And so creating a culture where people are always, to some degree, looking over their shoulder about what might come, I think that's been one of the lessons. And the second one, very quickly, is, people ask us about why we took of moving from a very successful desktop company to a SaaS-based cloud company. And I like to say that all of us as leaders, we're paid to make investments. And so I never use the word risk because that seems irresponsible. And that's been one of the lessons, which is if you think about it as an investment and get comfortable with, failure, and that some of them are going to work and some of them aren't. So hopefully those are, two of the lessons I've learned in terms of constantly re-examining things.
Thank you. Anand?
Nick, do we have time? I see the clock ticking away.
Yeah, we have about 40 seconds. In TV time, you got 40 seconds. So.
Well, anyway, I'm glad, as you said, that you didn't call this a Lifetime Achievement Award. Otherwise, I truly would have been a little ambivalent about accepting it. But you asked more a personal question that despite the team, what was it that was pivotal in your life? I was a rebel when I was in college. And I just didn't like the idea of going into my family business. So I went into the liberal arts and I started studying architecture in Mumbai College. And the college went on strike. And I was doing nothing but carrying around placards, with a headband in Mumbai city. And I'm always grateful for that strike, because if it hadn't happened, I probably would have been a bad architect today. But that made me apply abroad. I discovered the liberal arts, did an undergraduate filmmaking degree. And I did well, and then had my catharsis, chose to go back into work. So what I'm trying to say is that even today, what gives me confidence and the ability to take risks, I knew that I could always go into a very different profession, a profession of individualism, of being an author, being a filmmaker, and still do well. And I think that has fueled my confidence and my ability to take risks. So that was that seminal strike in an architectural college in Mumbai, I think, which got me started.
Great. That's a great anecdote. I know we're out of time, and thank you both for being so generous with your time and your thoughts. And I remember our first meetings very well, Shantanu, many years ago in San Francisco, and Anand many years ago in New York. So it's been wonderful to connect, and I hope we see each other in person again soon. Thank you.
Great catching. Thank you.
Congratulations.
And to you.